Hey there, I'm Danny Wilcox. I'm an entertainer in the realms of go-go dance, YouTube, modeling, and adult media. I'm here to explore the world of the entertainment industry through the lens of consumers and entertainers alike. So brace yourself for some deep conversations with unique and talented individuals right here on Keeping People Coming. Welcome to Keeping People Coming. I am your host, Danny Wilcox, and I'm here with.
Michael Weinberg.
And today we're going to talk about photography, among some other things. So, Michael, you are a photographer. When did you get into photography?
Um, I'm going to say I've always been into it and done it more or less, but like seriously, the way I'm doing it now, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago, max.
Okay. What first piqued your interest in the subject?
In the male nudes.
Hmm.
Well, what happened was I was taking a photo class, and long story short, a friend sent me a entry form for a juried photo competition at the Leather Archives and Museum
Hmm.
on fetish. And I have a friend who makes a beautiful friend who makes really cool clothing and things. So and he's an artist. So I thought, well, that would be fun to try to get into this just for the hell of it. I've done juried things before.
Hmm.
So particularly because I was taking a photo class. So we did a photo shoot and I sent it in. We didn't get in, but that doesn't matter. And that was my first one. And then it just like organically followed. It was like, oh, that was fun. Let me do another one, and then another one, and that became one of my major photo subjects ever since.
Yeah, and for all of you who don't know, Michael does specialize in the male form. With your photos, would you say it borders on sensual and sexual, or what exactly is the vibe you go for?
Well, it's kind of a little bit of everything.
Hmm.
So um, when someone comes over for a photo shoot, I sort of have two things going on at once simultaneously. One is sort of like a community project for queer people who identify as men, um, kind of just like a celebratory
Hmm.
queer pride kind of thing,
Yeah.
where I take photos that I want them to be happy with. So people come to explore whatever they want to explore by doing a nude photo shoot. It could be something about their body. They might be working on body positivity. They might be proud of some progress they've made at the gym. They may just be curious. I mean, any number of reasons. So I follow whatever they're looking for, and of course through my eyes, and that gives them something besides just taking selfies, which is kind of how
Yeah.
I describe this thing, as a way to get kind of beyond just looking, you know defining yourself through selfies, which is commonly how it's done now, right?
Oh yeah.
Image wise. But I also take photos that aren't really geared specifically for that. I want to say kind of for me, but that maybe is not 100% accurate.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, sometimes the photos are very erotic, other times not. It just depends on the person, because it's very dependent on who I'm with and
Yeah.
following their lead. Yeah,
Yeah, and with
yeah,
photography, if you aren't aware, it's an exchange between the model and photographer. I personally feel. Would you agree?
absolutely. It's a collaboration. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, because sometimes the model will have certain poses or things that the photographer hasn't seen before, and the photographer they have the creative eye. They guide the model because as a model, I can't really see how everything can look. I can imagine it, but I need to rely on photographers like Michael to tell me what looks good, what's evoking a response, what's fun. And in the nature of the podcast, what with photography would a non-photographer not expect can happen with the subject? Like, are there problems that you encounter that most people wouldn't know?
Like, what type of problem do you mean?
Like some people think with photography it may just be setting up lights and a camera and you go. But there's often a lot more steps and a lot of things that can go wrong along the way with that. And even going as far as production and editing photos.
Okay. So, well, the process is basically the same for anybody that I'm shooting, whether it's in my space or in their space. I mean, I bring my own lights, I bring my cameras, because I shoot more than one with
Yeah.
more than one. And, I just go for it, and the thing about photography is you don't really know what you've got till you start working with it. So every photo that I end up publishing or sharing with the person who has come to be photographed is highly edited after the fact. So whether it's digital or film, analog film, black and white film, I do a lot of editing. And before I get to the editing part, there's the whole selection because I take and for any given shoot, I take hundreds of photographs.
Oh yeah.
I could easily take 1,000 photographs. So first there's the selection of which ones are worth working on, and then there's the working on them. So and the fun part about film, which I've shot film with you as
Oh yeah,
well,
I love film.
you really don't know what you've got because you've got to like get the film processed and then you've got to scan it, and it's a whole lot more editing with film. So there aren't really any problems that happen during a shoot. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? It's just it's always kind of enjoyable, no matter what it is. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of work that most of the work, way like time wise, way more time is spent after the shoot
Oh yeah.
working on the photos.
I
Yeah.
actually got my start with photography taking selfies on Snapchat.
Hmm.
And I always thought with photography, it's just you take a photo and you post it somewhere and that's it. But the more I got into it, the more I saw all those steps. Like you have to focus on your lighting, you have to take a bunch of photos and single out which ones are good and focus on minute details. I'll have some where the two photos are identical, except there's a slight difference in like the tilt of the head.
Right.
And that can make all the difference. And I've only recently started getting into the editing, and
Hmm.
that takes I think more time for me than anything else because there's just so many different ways to edit photos.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And sometimes I'll get caught up in how much editing do I want for something, what sort of feel do I want to give, what's
Hmm.
important to edit. I don't quite know how to do all the edits where you clear up a blemish or anything like that yet,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
is why I like working with photographers like you who really do know what you're doing. Do you have any inspirations for photography, or do you kind of just go with what you like to see and like to create?
Well, I mean, I definitely have favorite photographers.
Hmm.
So my all-time favorite photographer has nothing to do with gay, nudes or whatever. Is Diane Arbus. A lot of people know Diane Arbus. She did a very famous photograph of a pair of twins that's on a cover of a famous book. Anyway, she committed suicide when she was, I don't know, maybe 40, long time ago. Um, and but she photographed people, and at the time it's not current language, so nobody would ever use this anymore, but they were called freaks. They were just outside the mainstream people,
Hmm.
people. She did photograph a lot of drag people. She photographed people who lived in nudist colonies. I mean, this is like in the 60s.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's like kind of like just beyond amazing. And as far as everybody knows, Robert Mapplethorpe, who I appreciate, but um, the photographer, the gay male photographer that is my favorite, his name is Peter Hujar, Hujar, and he photographed like a lot more subjects than Robert Mapplethorpe, but is not specifically known for the sexual stuff, but he did a little bit of everything.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't think so much of them, when I'm doing my photography, because
Yeah.
it's all been done before. So, there's been a million gay photographers who've done
Hmm.
male nudes. Um, so you just kind of got to just say, okay, and just follow your gut and do what you find interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
I've always felt that with any artistic endeavor, if you're focusing on what everyone else is doing, you're just going to kind of end up imitating them rather
Mm-hmm.
than creating your own image, your own art, something that's unique to you. And that's really why I like to create what I do. Whenever
Mm-hmm.
I do a shoot, be it adult or photography or anything else, if I find myself kind of doing the same things or imitating something else I've seen too much, it just makes me feel less engaged with it.
Mm-hmm.
And um, that spreads to a lot of different artists, I think. So, with photography, is that your main source of income at this moment?
Actually, no. I so my story is I worked as a librarian
Mm-hmm.
um, for a long time, and then I retired. So I don't really use it. I mean, I don't have an income from photography.
Mm.
You know, I'm a retired person.
Yeah.
To make a long story short. So fortunately that I can just kind of just I don't have to worry about it. I don't deal with that, you
Yeah,
know.
you get to
Yeah.
pursue your
Yeah,
passions. Oh,
exactly.
that's
Exactly.
awesome.
Yeah.
I know a
Yeah.
lot of people don't really get those chances in life to pursue what they really love, which is
Hmm.
part of why I started getting into the arts rather than falling into engineering, which I was originally studying.
Hmm.
But that
Hmm.
was because I was kind of pushed into it a little bit. Um, in high school, I was just really good at math and science, so everyone's like, "Oh, that's what you need to do. That's how you'll be successful." And I just think I'm way happier now than I could have been doing that.
Yeah, no, you gotta be comfortable with kind of the fact that we all need to do something, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I ended up kind of falling into that career after kind of um, stumbling around for a bit, which we all probably do to some extent until we end up kind of in our comfort zone. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a fun job because I like working with people,
Mm-hmm.
but it was you know it was a job. It was a means towards an end, and you know it fit in with you know wanted to continue to try to make art while I was working, which was a lot harder obviously than it is
Yeah.
now. So that's the good thing.
Well, and having been a librarian, I'd imagine that gave you access to just so much different media that helped influence your artistic eye, right?
Well, I mean, the best part of my job, I like working with people, so
Mm-hmm.
that was good. And eventually I became the art, one of my duties was the art librarian. So I got to pick the art
Ooh.
books. That was of course great. And I have a huge collection of art books at home. It's over the top. Got to start organizing them a little bit. But yeah, so yeah, it was like I had to go back to school when I was in my 30s. I wasn't happy about it, but you know, it worked out. It
Yeah, it
worked
sounds
out.
like it.
Yeah, it
It
worked
sounds like
out.
that was the path that led you to photography now.
Yeah, it enabled me to be where I am now. So I was lucky. I also, I mean, I had to work again. I mean, it was not fun going back to school and going down to live in the cornfields, and it's just, you know, I don't want to complain about it. I mean, it was all right, you know, but
It was just a step.
yeah, it got me what I needed. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So going back to photography, how do
Hmm.
you usually meet your models and set up shoots?
Almost always through Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Almost always. Um, because as we all know in the gay community, there's just tons of Instagram sites. And when I meet somebody, they have followers who, you know, I meet through the people that I shoot. And sometimes I ask them if they're interested in a shoot. Sometimes they ask me I if I do a shoot because I kind of try to make it open there on my Instagram that
Mm-hmm.
you know I'm open to shooting everybody. Like I just if someone asks and they want to be part of this project, you know, I basically say yes, you know,
Yeah.
which I like because I'm trying to, as I said, part of it is this community project. So I want it to reflect, you know, the diversity of the community
Mm-hmm.
and everybody to feel good about, you know, themselves, you know, in doing this and having this be kind of a positive thing.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who really shy away from cameras or anything because they feel like they're not a model. They could never do something like that. But I feel like everyone has aspects of themselves that are beautiful on camera, and everyone should feel comfortable and happy being able to see their own image somewhere. Like my sister, for example, she's a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful woman, but she doesn't like to be in front of cameras very much.
Mm-hmm.
And the only photos she ever seems to enjoy of herself are candid ones, where she's like laughing or smiling. and I think it has to do with being able to like make a pose feel natural.
Hmm.
Um, Although there are some poses that are not natural that definitely still look good.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean, I'll say that most people who I photograph have not been photographed before in this way, and it's very common for people to be a bit nervous, hadn't met me, they don't know me, they're doing this thing, makes you're a bit vulnerable, obviously. But I work very hard at, chatting for a while first, making sure that everyone feels safe, that it's a safe space, and almost invariably, people are happy that they've done it. They feel kind of like by the end of it, they had fun. They're nervous at the beginning, but by the end, oh, that was fun.
Oh yeah.
And so that's how I want it to be. That's really important to me. So yeah, I forget the question, but
Well, with photo shoots, fun really is what I always like to go for. If I leave
mm,
any sort of shoot and I just am kind of feeling down at all, I usually am not going to feel as good about the product.
mm,
And the same goes for go-go dance. Like if I'm up
mm,
on stage and I'm having a bad day, I usually won't make as much as in tips. And something I talked about with my first guest was that nobody really likes a sad go-go dancer. It's not usually what you're going for. Although of course
uh-huh,
there is melancholy photography, sad photos, and things like that. But
uh-huh.
that's not quite what you work in, is it?
You know, um, as far as the emotion goes, I mean, a lot of it's not the most, my work is not the most psychological. Like a lot of photographers who are really like focusing on portrait photography,
Mm-hmm.
really emphasize psychology. And I mean, if it's there, actually it's something that I'd kind of like to develop a little bit more. I mean, I love shooting portraits. Um, but I don't have this process whereby I really try to draw someone out and try to like you know get their innermost secrets and try to reflect that in the photograph.
Mm-hmm.
It's more just about feeling comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of celebrating themselves. And it is interesting because when I do focus on, it's like I say, okay, now let's do some portraits. Let's just kind of focus on that. Meanwhile, people have been naked, they're all over. I'm photographing their body all over. And when it comes to just like shooting their face, that's when people tend to tense up a little bit, which is interesting, right? So that's probably an area where, I mean, I love to do that part. I love
Mm-hmm.
to have people's faces,
Yeah.
um, uh, not that you asked this, but I feel like that could be an area where I eventually I could grow a little bit more and kind of vary that. Right now there's a particular pose that I like. I tend to put everybody in it, but that's okay because there's this thing called the typography where you do this thing that's multiple versions of kind of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of what I do with the portraits.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah.
So, with your photography compared to other people who do similar things like the male body, male beauty, what I see as different is yours always feels more real, more sensual, more like in touch with the other people. A lot of the other ones just feel very Hollywoodified, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm.
Is that something that you specifically would say you go for, or do you think it's kind of just a natural result?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I say when I am photographing someone. So if any of you want to come get photographed, I'll say this to you, is that that I want it to be, it's like queer, positive, any type of expression that you are, body positive, any type of body that you have, sex positive, any way that you experience being naked in front of a camera.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things are all good, however you are, however you feel. So, and I'm just kind of there to support you and work with you. And that anybody should be comfortable, whether they choose for it not to be at all erotic or whether they, want to be like really sexy, you
Yeah.
know? And so, and then for many people, there's like a mix,
Mm-hmm.
so there's like this, what do you call, two
A
poles,
spectrum.
yeah, there's a spectrum of that whole thing.
Hmm.
Um, and but yeah, so basically what you're talking about is being authentic, I think, right?
Oh yeah.
So, um, I think that I like to think they're authentic because, the model is in charge. I'm not in charge. I mean, I help to the extent that people ask me to help. Like some people are less comfortable posing, and so we'll really work together on trying to figure out ways to physically be.
Yeah, you're like a
Others,
guide for them.
yeah, yeah, and other people are, like for instance, you are very comfortable in your body for obvious reasons, so you don't really, that's not something that you need. We get to just go with the flow,
Hmm.
and it's all good with me. Either way is completely all good. Like there's no way of there's nothing ever bad. No one can ever do anything wrong or be wrong about it.
Yeah, you can just be yourself.
Right,
Have you
right.
ever had any instances where a model comes in and they're doing very staged poses at first?
I think um, like I said, there's a range of like comfort
Hmm.
with that. So in the beginning, I'll probably be more involved in helping move people around and getting them to feel comfortable standing differently. I mean, people are generally a little self-conscious
Yeah.
doing that in front of another person, I think. So my goal is by the end, or as we progress, that they develop more and more comfort and find ways of just relaxing and kind of,
Hmm.
you know, getting comfortable in their body so that I can get different angles and things like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's always a process with everybody. It's
So,
pretty much the same, kind of in a way.
so on that with that process, something that happens in go-go dance I've discovered is I'll wear a certain outfit, like particularly like lingerie,
Hmm.
and people will see it and they'll even tell me I never realized that's something I was interested in. So, like as a go-go dancer, I'll help people discover things about themselves. In
Hmm.
shoots, do you ever have times where people discover something about themselves, or perhaps where you discover something about yourself?
Well, one of the fun things that I do is I always encourage them to bring things of their own. So, and it could be anything. It could be a piece of jewelry that they like. It could be, if they're a musician, a musical instruments. It could be any kind of gear. It could be any kind of underwear, anything that they find sexy, and that is a fun way to have that should be more expressive of them.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question? I should have had a coffee before we started this. I'm just saying.
I should have offered you
But
one.
anyway, that's all right. Um, yeah.
Well, I guess I'll ask again. Are
Okay.
there any specific things that you didn't know about yourself that you've encountered in a shoot? Like, did somebody ever bring a certain outfit or something that you didn't realize was something you liked to see?
Um, well, I love to see what people bring,
Mm-hmm.
right? I love that because then it's new to me. Like I have, stuff for people that I've collected, like fun underwear and stuff just to have, hey, you want to try this? You want to try that?
Yeah.
Because some people don't have anything like that. And then there's the whole Instagram issue of what you can post and blah blah blah.
Oh
So I'm trying to do some more stuff with underwear. But yeah, I love when people bring like crazy costume jewelry that they found, that they love, which is a common type of jewelry that people bring,
yeah.
or not so much costume, but vintage,
Yeah.
thrift store stuff. Um, and I'm trying to think of anything anybody else has kind of brought. Yeah, like I said, musical instruments, which I noticed we've got a rather large one over there.
Which I actually was gonna ask if it'd be okay if we used.
Yeah, absolutely. And my cat sometimes jumps in a photo. That can be cute.
Mm.
Those usually don't make it, but occasionally the shots do good, so then my cat's in there.
Yeah. Like I'm not sure if he's actually on screen right now, but my
Right.
cat's right here, and my roommate's cat is right next to the camera, just relaxing with us.
And I have a cat who has his own Instagram, but I'm not going to promote it because he doesn't deserve it.
Well, maybe people will be asking for it in the comments. I'll have to let you know.
Oh, okay. Well, it's pretty fabulous.
I'll have to check it out because I don't think I've seen it before.
Yeah, I don't really bring it up often, but
Mhm.
yeah.
So, for the sake of time, I want to wrap things up, but I want to ask, are there any other aspects of being a photographer or photography itself that you would like to share with our audience?
Um, well, if you have any interest, if you're a gay, queer, whatever, identified man, um, and you're interested, oh, is this a good time for me to hold up my little
Oh, yeah, you
thing?
can just say it out loud. I'm going to put
Okay.
it on the screen.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So I've been canceled multiple times uh, by my by Mr. Zuckerberg. So my current Instagram is called gays dot gaze gaze. So little plan words there, followed by four, the number four, because this is my fourth attempt at this. And actually, on that account, there's a link to another account that I have that has a broader variety of subjects, not just male nudes, some other things, but it's mostly male nudes, and it's all analog photography, black and white film. There's a link to that account from my Gaze 4 account. And
Mhm.
there's also a link to my Just for Fans, which I used to have Patreon, but they canceled me. So all of my shoots that I do, I post like 9 photos, and then the whole set that the model gets, because the model gets all the photos that I shoot, of course. Those get posted as long as I have consent. So everything is very consent oriented
Oh, yeah.
around what I do. So on multiple levels, we won't go into details, but everything is very, very consent oriented and go in a lot of detail there. So there's a link to my Just for Fans. If I have consent, then I post the shoot there.
Oh, yeah.
So all from that one account.
Yeah, and if you've been following my work for a little while, you'll recognize some of Michael's photos in my Instagram on Just for Fans, and I believe some on OnlyFans as well. And there will be more coming always. So that wraps up our session of keeping people coming with Michael Weinberg. Michael, thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you, Danny. My pleasure. All right.
Bye, guys. So, this episode of Keeping People Coming is a little bit shorter than my first one and is shorter than I anticipate future ones will be. We did that a little bit for the sake of time because Michael had another engagement, and we actually did a film photo shoot right here, right where that camera is sitting. It was a lot of fun and was essentially a continuation of a shoot we had started a couple days prior, which is when I asked Michael to come on because I hadn't even thought about bringing a photographer on, especially one with the insights and specific ideas and background that Michael has. And of course, everyone has their own background. As I mentioned, I got my start with photography on Snapchat. I actually taught a friend of mine in college, an exchange student from Bosnia, how to take selfies through Snapchat. And through that, she got more comfortable with it. She developed her own aesthetic and her own style. She learned how to pose for selfies and other photos and has grown an Instagram following and built a beautiful life for herself in New York City. Anna Maria, if you watch this, I love you and I love everything you're doing. So, to add a little bit onto this, I want to give some more of my perspective on photography. In the digital age, you don't have to pay for film, and if something goes wrong, you don't have to scrap like a physical piece of media and pay for more, get more. You don't have a limited number of photos you can take because you only have that much film left. Of course, there are digital limits, but those are very hard to hit. Like, I know people who have 80,000 photos on their phone and they still have space. It's the videos that get you. And speaking of videos, when talking about film in particular, I used to always hear the phrase on the cutting room floor for scenes that had been scrapped from movies. From a digital standpoint, this doesn't make sense. It would make more sense to say the cutting room recycling bin or something like that, the editor recycling bin. But this was because they actually would cut the film and have each different scene and they would splice it together with certain things, how they applied transitions. Um, in college, one of the first films like I ever saw from dance, one of the earliest films, I should say, of dance, was just this woman on stage with a beautiful flowing dress that had been colorized by taking individual shots on the film which I think is roughly 24 per second to make something smooth visually, and they painted each individual scene. Now, it's really hard to get every single painting exact, especially when you're working on film. And all of this means that in the digital age today, photography is so much more accessible to everyone. And as cameras get more powerful and editors built into phones and other ones that you can otherwise download or buy have more capabilities, more and more people are able to get into photography, especially with social medias like Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, allowing you to spread your photography on a mass scale. And this means that some people who already have a following for something else can share their photos and are kind of automatically going to have a following there for their photography. It also means that just with more people doing it, I feel like there's less less standard. Like it has to be done this way because the procedure isn't so specific. You point and click, and the editing you can do whatever you want with. I've played with some photos where I changed the contrast and warmth and things to make the photos look absolutely crazy, or you can turn a photo into black and white with the push of a button. And all of this means that photography is just a wonderful art that's available to everyone, especially with editing, because there's so much you can do with any photo. I actually have an artist, a local artist in Chicago, IVV Art. If you're a fan of male beauty and just really cool modern art, you definitely should check it out. There should be a link somewhere over here. He has done a couple of things with me involving 3D body scans, among other things, but one in particular is a photo I took, I believe, at Hydrate nightclub, maybe somewhere else, I'm not 100% sure, that he digitally altered to be made of lines, a bunch of squiggly lines that create this wonderfully realistic black and white photo. He went to an art show and had a canvas print of one of them, and because he didn't need it anymore, he gave it to me. Michael has also offered to make prints of some of my photos, and I said, absolutely, if there's any that you would like immortalized forever, let me know, and I would be happy to put them on my wall, show them off. I have one up there, and the other one, the actual print, I don't have hung up yet. I just haven't quite gotten to that. I was planning on moving, and things change. But the ability today to capture anything and save it forever surpasses anything in history by a large margin. Everyone can have photos of themselves. You can have dozens of photo albums completely full of photos that you all took yourself. And I think that's amazing. It's an art that's really accessible and I think is, compared to other art forms, is done by more people without the intention of being amazing at it or making money. Michael, as you heard, does it for a love of photography and he explores what he likes. He doesn't rely on it for income, so he really can do whatever he wants. He doesn't have anyone telling him these photos have to be this. Um, for me, with photographers, I just find people whose stuff I like and they like me, they like the way I pose, they like my energy. And I've had some people recently ask me how I managed to do this because photographers are expensive. Models are as well, though. If you want to hire a model for something, a professional model, it's going to be a couple $100 per hour. So when you have a professional photographer and a professional model, it essentially just cancels out. And some photographers aren't privy to this. I had one guy who was newer, wanted to do a shoot with me, and he was he approached me about it and was talking about it and then started talking about payment and I was kind of just like, I'm not going to pay you for a shoot. I have too many other people who I work with, um, because we both keep the content and can share it on our pages, our sites, whatever our deal is, especially if it's somebody who monetizes it on just for fans, or I guess you can monetize Instagram if you have branding partnerships. Maybe I'll do that in the future if any brands like me and want to reach out. Anyway, so all in all, photography is in its heyday, really. Some people would disagree, but I think it is because it's so accessible and it's so easy to do. And kind of like I think Chef Cousteau from Ratatouille would say, anyone can cook, anyone can take photos. It's who sees it and who loves it that I guess makes a difference. If you take a photo for yourself, is that any less important than someone taking a photo for an advertisement for Burger King? I don't think so. Money isn't what matters. It's loving what you do and creating art that makes you happy. But of course, how do you create photographs to keep people coming, keep people wanting more? With my photo sets that I post on the fan sites, which I've noticed a lot, some performers stick strictly to videos, some have a nice blend, some people are only photos. I like that blend. I've had a lot of people say, we've seen everything. We don't really need to see it all every time. Some people really enjoy seeing photos with fun, different outfits, seeing what I can reveal without revealing everything. And I take that to heart. I like to create interesting photos, show off my flexibility, my creativeness when it comes to outfits and different poses, my expressiveness. Yeah, my expressiveness because I have a fairly expressive face, I've been told. Um, and showing all those things, showing my true, authentic self, like Michael said he always is trying to capture, that is what keeps people coming when it comes to photography. For me. You might have your own stake, but huh, you do what you want to. If you're a professional photographer, feel free to leave some of your experiences in the comments below. To tell me if you think that some of the stuff we said might be a little off base for the photography community in general, or if you think it's accurate and you agree, feel free to give this video a like. And if you enjoyed this podcast, they'll all be available on various platforms. It's not quite been established yet, but we shall see. And you can find all of my links at dannywilcox.com. See ya.